Greetings. Introducing Voices of Festival, brand new podcast series from the International African Arts Festival, created to keep you connected as we count down to our 55th year of culture, creativity, and community. Each week, hear directly from the artists, dancers, musicians, vendors, and community members who make this festival an unforgettable experience. Tune in every Thursday at 8 p.m. on YouTube for Voices of Festival. Celebrate the culture, feel the rhythm, be part of the journey. Yes. Hey, Barigani, Hotep, Sawubona, Shalom. Good to have you joining us. My name is Adeyemi Bandélé, and this is Voices of Festival. We have a special today because we are acknowledging and remembering the 50th anniversary of the Soweto Uprising, where hundreds of young people came out into the streets of Soweto. Our special guest tonight is Brother Douma Boya. I'm going to tell you more about him. But before I do that, let me go through some things here. First of all, honoring our ancestors. And interestingly enough, we've just had one additional name added to this list, and he is a South African artist, Abdullah Ibrahim. So we want to pay homage to Abdullah Ibrahim, Hugh Masekela, David and Elizabeth Sibeko, Boji Jordan, Nelson and Winnie Mandela, Jitu Weyusi, Mzee Moyo, Mama Koumba, Jim Setu Dyson, Amanisha Black, Baba Kwame Shangi, Chief Bey, just to name a few. So we say Ibaye and we remember them and we say their names. Also, we need your support. One of the key issues with festival is the challenge that we face of finances, of support. And I think that oftentimes people take it for granted what we have. Been around for 55 years, so you probably figure, well, hey, they don't need my help because they've been around that long. But it's not that case. We need your support. And the last couple of years have been particularly challenging for us. So if you've been sitting on the fence wondering, well, should I send a contribution, et cetera, send the contribution. We need it. And you can support us by going to text to give, 917-268-1592. That's text to give. One of the ways in which you can support the International African Arts Festival. And in supporting this program, this podcast, we want you to subscribe, like, share. Let me say that one more time. Subscribe to us, like us, share us. We want to build this vehicle so that it becomes one of the most awesome sources of information about festival, but about the Pan-African world. So thank you for joining us today. We want to get started. And in doing so, I just found a piece here, and I'm just going to do a touch of it. I hope my producer here, beware, won't be too hard on me, but just a touch of Abdullah Ibrahim. And the tune is Soweto. Yes, Ibaye, Abdullah Ibrahim. Joining us, want to bring him in, my good friend. I say that, and I'm truly honored to be able to call him friend, longtime comrade, Dr. Douma Boya. Welcome to Voices of Festival.
Thank you, my brother Adeyemi. Greetings to everybody. Greetings to the Africans who are in America and Africans all over the world. And we're saying Sani Bonani.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Douma, for joining us. Um, South African activist, poet, filmmaker, producer, journalist, and playwright. As we get into our program, any comments on the passing of Abdullah Ibrahim?
Well, he has taken his last journey to go and join the ancestors. He was on this earth for 91 years, and 70 of those years he was giving music to the world, and he did an amazingly excellent job at that. I am of the firm belief that when a person walks this earth and gives of his talent in a particular way, they have a rousing reception in the other side. The ancestors welcome them in a standing ovation and all adulation. Uh, we are saddened by the passing, but we also were blessed with his life for 9 decades, and that's a long time. But in those 9 decades, he shifted uh, societies. He shifted the narrative. He really influenced society with his music. I was one of his most ardent fans, and interestingly, he lived on 23rd Street in mid lower Manhattan, 23rd
Uh,
Street. I used to visit him in an apartment there. I saw basically almost all his concerts in New York. And I also took him on a tour with Hugh Masekela, with Malombo. You were part
oh,
of that because you helped me house Malombo and some of the musicians. I took them around the country. I took them to DC, New York, New Orleans, and stuff like that. And those times, I really have amazing memories of times that I spent with him and Hugh and Philip Tabane and
mm,
some other brothers and sisters from the continent
okay.
who were cultural activists. As you know, I was very much involved with the arts and culture in the United States, particularly in the black communities of New York.
Yep, and we're going to talk a
So
bit
may his
about that.
soul rest in peace, but we also celebrate his life.
Absolutely. Ibaye. Duma, take us back. June 16th, 1976, Soweto. What's happening?
So it's been 50 years, and it's unbelievable that it has been 50 years. I was 21 years old, Yemi. I was working as a journalist for the only black newspaper in South Africa then. The newspaper that I worked with was the only black newspaper serving, I mean, millions of black people and telling stories, trying to tell stories in a manner that white people couldn't because they had oppressed us. But 2 years before that, around 1974, I started a sports column in the newspaper where I was dealing with high schools. I used to travel around Soweto high schools covering the school sports. There was mostly soccer, netball, athletics, anything that had to do with high schools. I used to cover them, and I had a front a double page a double page spread on a weekend newspaper, which was called Douma Boya's School Sports.
Hmm.
So you can imagine that I developed a relationship with students, with high school students across the country, but mostly from Soweto because I was based in Soweto. But sometimes I would cover from other societies as well. But so Soweto students knew me, almost all of them, and there was that affinity. I was young, I was almost their age because I dropped out of high school and became a journalist. I was young like them, I played with them, but they all knew me. 3 days before June 16, on the 13th, there was a meeting where the students had planned the march. After that meeting in the evening, they came to my house, and I was telling you the relationship I had with the students so as to explain why I was the journalist that they came to say to me, on Wednesday, the 16th, something big is going to be happening. We want you there with a photographer and a driver. Don't bring other journalists, because they did not want to be dealing with other people. There was just two of us. There was another brother who worked for another newspaper. He also covered school sports. So the two of us were the ones who were very familiar with the students. So they came to me on a Sunday evening to say to me, on Wednesday, something big is happening. I then go to work on Monday and say to my editor, I need a car and a photographer on Wednesday because something big is happening. He says, Douma, what's something big? No, I can't tell you, but something big is happening to me. And of course, he just dismissed me and told me I'm crazy. He sent me on another assignment, but fortunately in Soweto as well. There was an opening of something called Orlando Children's Home for orphans and stuff like that. So I went to cover the orphanage. Okay. I was begrudgingly going to that assignment because I knew the students wouldn't just come to me and say there's something big. I really didn't have an idea as well, Adeyemi, what that something big was. Around 10 o'clock in the morning, I get a call when I'm at the store, so it's children's home. I get a call from my editor who says, leave whatever you're doing and go to a particular school where 20,000 students had gathered. And most of them were saying that we won't talk to journalists. We'll only talk to Douma and Gabu. Those are the two journalists that we will talk to. So, of course, my editor at that time understood what that whole something big was. And that was June 16th. That was the students marching from all Soweto schools going towards town. As you know, South Africa is almost like New York. Black people live in Soweto and white people live in town. There's a 15-kilometer distance between the two, and students were going to march to town. And of course, police came and descended on the marching students. By the time I got there, chaos had already erupted. A few students had been killed, and the famous Hector Peterson had already been shot and taken to hospital. The first student had been killed and stuff like that. And this rest, as they say, Adeyemi, is history. I was to be involved for the next few months with running around, covering the marches by the students. But as I have explained the relationship, I then personally got involved with organizing the students into a tight unit so that the revolution that they were a part of could be directed in some kind of way. The shocking thing is that the kids that we're talking about were 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. They were hardly in matric. Very few of them were in matric. The student leadership was made of 16, 17, 18-year-olds. They couldn't even write a press release. So I had to sit in meetings with them and plan to write press releases because June 16 brought South Africa to a standstill. We had never seen anything like that.
Douma,
the whole country.
Douma, can I interrupt for a minute? Was there a significance to the date, June 16th?
The only significance was that they met on the 13th and said, okay, so now let me just give you a little bit. No, that date was not significant at all before that. But let me tell you what was happening. So English in South Africa is a medium of instruction. So we are taught in English. So you will learn mathematics in English, geography in English, history in English. Then you learn your home language. If your home language is Zulu, you learn Zulu as a language. Then we learned Afrikaans, which was the second official language then. We also learned Afrikaans as a language. But then the white Afrikaans government decided that no, forget this. Let them use Afrikaans as a medium of instructions. So let them forget English. So the kids are going to learn mathematics, history, science, geography in Afrikaans. Now, Afrikaans was associated with our oppressors, number one. So most Black people hated the language. Number two, we didn't speak the language because we hated it. Number three, in class, we had to take it. It was mandatory to take it as a language, and we used to fail it. And I think it was associated with the fact that we associated it with the oppressor. Now, the same language that you failing and you hate now has to be the medium of instruction, pushing English away. And a group of junior secondary schools, one or two junior secondary schools students, where it was starting, boycotted classes and said, no, we're not going to learn in Afrikaans. This was back in April. And these students said, we're not going to go to class. I covered that story. It was a small story. These kids don't want to go to class because they don't want to be taught in Afrikaans. Nobody took that seriously at all. It was just a small little footnote in some newspaper. None of us took it seriously, as serious as it was. Then it was the high school students who said, guys, some kids are not going to class because they're protesting this Afrikaans thing. What are we doing about it? We are going into exams. And the kids, the grown kids who were saying this, were a little bit exempt from Afrikaans, some of them, because they were about to write their matric and grade 11, and they had not done Afrikaans. But the younger kids who were coming into the system were being forced to learn in Afrikaans. So the ones who came and said, let's pledge solidarity, were not even affected by Afrikaans at that time. But they also understood that the government was introducing Afrikaans for the rest of society from then on till forever. So on Sunday, June 13, they call a meeting. This is 2 months after the young kids had started protesting. So they called a meeting to ask each other, what are we going to do to show support? And then they said on Wednesday, because they needed time to inform other schools, and this was a Sunday, said Monday, Tuesday, we're going around the whole Soweto to inform the students that 8 o'clock on Wednesday at assembly, when you leave assembly, you go out of the gate. We have something that's called assembly in South Africa. When the school starts, we stand at assembly, we sing and we pray, and then we go to classes at 8 o'clock in schools throughout the country. So at 8 o'clock, the bell rings, all these students all over Soweto, 20,000 or 30,000 or 50,000, I don't know the number, they go to assembly. After that, they all leave, and teachers are like, what is happening? Remember, there's been secrecy around this thing. And then, boom, June 16 happened. So no, there was no significance to that date. It's just a date that the students had chosen. Actually, it was supposed to be exam time. They were supposed to be writing their midterm exams. Schools in South Africa start in January, not in September. They start in January. They break for winter holidays in June. It's winter in South Africa in June. Then they go back in July. Then they break for the summer, which is the end of the term in December. So our syllabus doesn't work like the syllabus in the United States. So they were supposed to be writing their midterm exams in June. That's when this whole thing exploded. And by the end of the day in 76, a few hundred students had been killed.
Oh, okay. You answered two of my questions. So that the demonstration on June 16th was not a spontaneous event, but had in fact, there had been some planning around it, and it was designed to express their opposition to being forced to speak Afrikaans and to learn in Afrikaans, correct?
So I just need to make some small clarity to your first question, because your first question is very controversial in the South African society. After June 16, there were liberation movements that were based outside of the country. You were familiar with them because you were working with some of them. You've mentioned David Sibeko, who was the head of the PAC. There was the Johnny McCarthy, who was the head of the ANC. But the international liberation movements started claiming credit for June 16. So your question of whether this was planned or not is extremely important, Yemi, because we need to stress this. There was no outside influence. The students themselves got up and said, how can we support our fellow young students in the boycott of Afrikaans? So it's not like we, the adults, came in and influenced them. It's not like the liberation movements came and planned it. All of us were taken by surprise, including myself, who worked very closely with the students from June 16 onwards. But I had no inkling, I had no knowledge of the fact that this whole thing was going to happen a few days later. They came to my house just to tell me something big was going to happen.
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify
that is quite significant, because oftentimes, particularly when young people are doing something, there's always this assumption that there's some other folks behind the scenes that are directing them. And that's not the case. This is homegrown, bottoms up. In fact, when they had a major demonstration here by young people in Washington, D.C., the usual players were not involved in planning this event. And, literally 1 million students came out from their schools, because they were moved by this issue, not that somebody else had organized them. You mentioned this, but clarify for me. Approximately how many people were actually killed and injured on that day?
So the numbers are very difficult, Adeyemi, because now I mentioned that I worked for the only black newspaper in the country. There were a number of newspapers, and the World newspaper, the one I worked for, was the only, like, as much as it was owned by white people, we tried to tell the story as factually as we could. You could only get the numbers from the police, who was the ones who were picking up the bodies and the ambulances, and the police were not telling the truth. That's number one. So the police would say, I'm giving an example, would say 100 people were killed. But as we were running around the townships and going to police stations and going to mortuaries and going to hospitals, we were jumping over bodies of people who had been killed. And we knew that the number 100 was a fictitious number. But 3 days later, my newspaper, we had counted about 795 kids who had been killed within a week. Again, those numbers were unofficial, Yemi, because it was just us collating the reports from people and hospitals and stuff like that, running around trying to do something official. So till today, no one really has an actual account of how many people were killed, because white people are not going to give us that, because it was going to make them look bad throughout the world. So I don't know. But by the time the year was over, the number was much more than 1,000 people. It was much. And we are talking mostly students and young people, because it just went, just from June 16, young people just were rabbit foaming in the mouth, and they just went bug crazy on everyone. And it was something else.
Was the events of June 16th a one and done, or was it the beginning of a movement by young people?
So, Yemi, I'm going to tell you a sad story. It is sad, but it is also factual. Education in South Africa for black children stopped on June 16, 1976. For the rest of the year, there was no learning, because true students would not allow people to go back to class, because they started by saying, we don't want Africans. But when this whole thing gained momentum, they changed and said, no, we want freedom. So a number of things happened, and I'm going to mention a few of them. And again, one is going to just try to be as factual as we can, as much as memory can remind us. You have heard of the Black Consciousness Movement of South Africa. We were influenced by all you all, but Stokely Carmichael, Huey Newton, and the events of the United States. So part of the reason why there was June 16, not direct planning, but the influences, was because of Steve Biko and Black Consciousness, because the Black Consciousness guys had decided to go into high schools and become teachers, and they had influenced students, and they would be talking revolution and stuff like that. So by the time June 16 happened, it happened because the ground was, what do you say? The ground was right. Yeah, for what the conscientization had happened. We were listening to Malcolm X's speeches, and the records were banned, but we found ways of listening to them. We were listening to Martin Luther King. We were reading books. We were reading books by all the radical, even Soul on Ice, George Jackson, Jonathan Jackson, Angela Davis, and all of those kinds of things. So the Black Consciousness Movement had done quite a lot of work. So in South Africa, a group had been formed, started as...
Douma, let me ask you something before you leave that point in terms of influences. Music, did it play a particular part?
Oh my goodness. That's where it started.
How so?
Listen, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Adeyemi, in the early 60s, we're being fed Elvis Presley, Rare Earth, Rolling Stones, Beatles, and stuff like that. Up until 1971, 72, 73. 74 was the height of black music in the United States. I mean, in South Africa, from the United States. I'm talking about the OJs, even people that you guys in the United States had never heard of, who were Black Americans, who were being shipped to South Africa and their music. A woman called Shirley Brown, Percy Sledge, where you would know some of these people because you are much deeper into the culture. But James Brown, Otis Redding, by that time, we were listening to nothing else but African American music. So when James Brown said, "Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud," in the early 70s, it was right in the middle of the birth and the growth of the Black consciousness movement.
Was that able to be? Were they able to play that on South African radio, or was on underground?
For some reason, "Say It Loud" was not banned. I don't know why. Max Roach's album called "Freedom Now Sweet" was banned. Uhuru Sasa, "Freedom Now Sweet." I mean, there were songs that would be banned, but for some reason, James Brown was not banned. I don't know why. But but there was also a lot of music. Curtis Mayfield was huge. The Commodores, when they came up, was huge. I was a Michael Jackson and Jackson 5 fan. You know, I mean, you talk about the music was something else. I just don't want to bring the music into this because I want to separate. But the music had created the blanket of us having a relationship with the African Americans, and it was a very strong relationship. Look, people like myself also had collections of Gil Scott Heron's Johannesburg because we listened to that kind of music. So yes, the music did have influence. And the other reason I want to separate Yemi is because we're talking about high school students who might not have been as deep in the music and the music influence as people like myself as a journalist were. Because we're talking about 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And not all of them would have really been influenced by music that much. But for those of us in the Black consciousness movement who were influencing and conscientizing the students, yes, definitely we were influenced. So Black consciousness was much stronger then. The point I was trying to make was there's a committee that was created that was called the Committee of 10. That involved people like Winnie Mandela, Dr. Ntato Motlana, and I can't remember if Bishop Tutu was a member, but it would be people like those because they were all in Soweto. He was actually part of the Committee of 10 because when I was detained, he was part of the people that came to fight for me. So there was an adult committee that was called the Committee of 10 that had been formed not too long before June 16. Either that year or the year before, there was this organization of adults, which was Black consciousness, which was also trying to intervene and negotiate and talk to the white people. I mean, the struggle was just intensifying on all levels. So as soon as June 16 happened, the Committee of 10, some kind of way, started intermingling with the students, started dragging them and started feeding them, started supporting them, started getting monies for them. So the language a few days later changed. As much as the students were saying no to Africans, we don't want this education, before long, you could hear a Winnie Mandela in some of the rhetoric that the students were speaking. You were like, these kids are no longer alone. There's other voices that they're listening to. There's other voices that they're hearing. So that's the first level. But on the second level, because of the brutality and the repression that was happening because the students were arising, we then had to take some of them out of the country to liberation movements. I was one of the people who was taking young people out and handing them over to either the ANC or the PAC, who would then take over and then send them for military training, send others to school and stuff like that. So from 76, there was a massive influence of young South Africans into Lesotho, Swaziland, and Botswana, into the liberation movements, who were leaving South Africa to join liberation movements. So the whole impetus of the struggle was just taking a different dynamic. So the liberation movements then, in return, we're sending messages back to the students to say, do not give up. Because for the first time since 1963, when Mandela and the Rivonia trialists were sentenced to life in prison, for the first time, people were seeing seeds of change. They were seeing an impetus of something that could happen. So they needed to ride onto that wave just to make sure that it does not stop. Then this brings me back to your question, was it a one-day event or was it continuous? For the next, I would say forever, education had been destabilized. For the next 10 years, remember that in 1984, 85, 86, South Africa was in flames with the unions now, with Alan Busak and Bishop Tutu. Bishop Tutu gets his Nobel Prize in 1984, but South Africa is aflame. The unions are out in the streets. Busak, Tutu, and the churches are screaming loudly. All of that started in 1976, and all of that was destabilizing the education more than anything in South Africa, and the free flow of life. I said to you, I want to tell you a sad story. It is a sad story because even the liberation movement starts saying, let's make South Africa ungovernable. I think it was Oliver Tambo who expressed those words. And the streets of South Africa, it's no longer Soweto now, it's all over the country. The streets of Soweto now or South Africa were just going crazy. And I'm saying it's a sad story, Adeyemi, because as much as the fights were for us to attain our liberation, they were also creating a massive damage into our society that till today we cannot repair. There's a generation of young people who didn't go to school, ended up in camps, ended up in exile. Those who were fortunate managed to go to school, but the majority of them didn't go to school. Then there were others who dropped out, did not get an opportunity of leaving the country, and they just became the lost generation. In 84, 85, 86, 10 years later, when South Africans, what is called black on black violence, these are the people that you saw tearing each other up as communities. So as you've seen happens in black communities in the United States, the Conte program, the white South Africans replicated that. Because there were informers every street corner. They were now bringing drugs. They're bringing all kinds of things. So they were just diverting the revolution into other things. I'm not saying all of those things to water down the impact that June 16 had, because we are where we are right now, having gotten our democracy, and everybody acknowledges that the impetus was and the seed was planted by June 16, 1976.
Douma, you say the seeds were planted, which makes a lot of sense. Talk about, though, any lasting impact of Soweto Day itself, the kind of massacre that occurred. Did it have any impact on you personally? And did it have an impact upon the students themselves in terms of seeing the level of repression that was brought down on them?
As happens in every revolution, Yemi, there's number one, societal and group organization, when all of you are doing something as a group. Then night comes when you go home and you are now on your own or with your family, where you now as an individual have to decide what to do with the impact of what you've just seen. And what you've just seen is something that you've never ever seen in your life. And you might have been jumping over dead bodies. You might have been running with your friends and they tore his brains out with a bullet. You might have missed a bullet yourself, or you might have been shot in the shoulder, or you might have carried somebody who's been shot. That's something that happened and you physically witnessed it. But then how does it manifest? And how do you then take that and what do you do with it moving forward? Millions of people were affected. But now millions of people had million different ways of how they responded. And again, I'm saying that because unfortunately in South Africa, we did not have one major reaction from everybody that said, this is how we move forward. And again, I mentioned Conte as an example, but then the white government went into our communities full force with informers and everything else. So there were massive positive results for June 16. There were also negative end results as well.
Folks, we're here with Dr. Douma Ndlovu on this special, talking about Soweto Day and its impact not only on South Africa, but on the world. Douma, would you equate Soweto Day to April 4th, 1968, the assassination of Dr. King and the aftermath of that?
I want to take it back, and I have reasons why I want to do that. I want to take it back to the 50s when Rosa Parks refused to give up a seat for white people in a bus. Why I want to take it there, Adeyemi, is because in 1968, when King was killed, a number of revolutionary things that happened in the United States, and people were now much more conscious, and they were conscious in what they were doing. And the explosion of the fury, I mean, Boston was on fire. And I think at one time, James Brown was supposed to be performing on that day, and they tried to use that to appease people. But you are now dealing with a conscientized folks who knew exactly what they were doing. But there was also organizations like SNCC with Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. There were people like Angela Davis who had also the political consciousness in the United States in 1968 was at a heightened level. June 16 happened at a time just like when Rosa Parks decided to refuse to stand up on the bus. Our parents, there was as an immediate reaction of criticizing the students from some of them. They were like, what the hell is happening? Yeah. So it took time for people to be conscientized. So yes, profound when Martin Luther King was killed, but you guys had a benefit of the fact that most of you were already political animals who were running around trying to gather folks to move forward on this liberation thing, not in South Africa. Which is why...
Now go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
Which is why the white people were able to come into our society and divide us. They then chose to divide and conquer because they could see how potent that thing that was happening in June 16 was. Mm-hmm. They also understood that it was not planned militaristic style. It was just a group of students who said, let's do this, and they did it. So the whites had to come in before it became a structured organization where it could be deadly in terms of the white Africans government.
Yeah. Every time I think about Soweto, Douma, I'm mindful of parental reaction to it. And you just touched on it. When we were active here in the States, the student movement, I remember so clearly one of my comrades, a Latino sister, because we were doing much of what was going on in Soweto in terms of we'd shut down a school. We could shut a high school down in a minute. And we had 10 demands around improvement in education and increase in African-American, Latino instructors, etc. But I vividly remember going to LaGuardia Airport with my comrade because her family was sending her butt home to Puerto Rico. They were not going to let her engage in this kind of stuff. But
it
also
happened in South Africa. It happened in South Africa. People were shipped back to the rural areas to say, no, you're going to be killed. Yeah, it happened here, yes.
And so too, though, we know about the student activism in Montgomery when public school, elementary school children up to high school took to the streets and marched and were arrested. And even in that situation, oftentimes they did that. They took that action in opposition to their parents. And I'm wondering how that played out. Because, these are some of the dynamics that people don't understand about movements and that all that internal stuff that takes place and how they impact families. So how did June 16th impact the families? Douma, did you freeze up on me? All right, let's hope we get you back. If you're still with me, this is Voices of Festival. My guest who's currently frozen is Dr. Douma Ndlovu, writer, activist, detained in South Africa. And as soon as we can get him back, we will do that. All right, I hope we can get him. Douma, okay, we'll work on trying to bring Dr. Douma Ndlovu back. It's important that we look at what happened with Douma. He talked about being detained. My relationship with him came out of our work around the cultural boycott, the East, and then into the National Black United Front, created this whole movement around stopping entertainers from going to South Africa to perform. Some who went directly in, and then there were those who went to this Sin City that was created, which allowed Africans to mingle with white people in this area, and then they brought in the artists from around the country. And man, we put so much pressure on them. Several of them changed their minds about going, and then those who went experienced boycotts and demonstrations when they came back to the States to perform, because they have a responsibility. But Douma is back with us, so let's continue our discussion with Dr. Douma Ndlovu here on Voices of Festival. Douma, welcome back.
Sorry,
No problem.
Kremlins. If it was during the days, I would say the white people are trying to get us.
Yeah. So, but we were talking about the impact on families of Soweto
On
days.
families, yeah. So, I mean, I do have to say this, but I also have to add that the students survived because the Black community took them in. There are those people who provided them with shelter, hid them from the police, but they were select. And I don't want to say there were few or there were many, because I don't want to divide my people. But everybody was taken by surprise. This was a massive shock to our parents. Look, let me give you an example, Adeyemi. I spent July, August, September, October, November, December in prison of 76.
Why?
Well, I was an activist. I was one of those who were selected to be arrested and detained and be kept in prison. And everybody was getting visitors. We were allowed visitors. People would come and visit. I didn't get any visit until around October. And then I get a message that I have a visitor. I'm like, okay, who could it be? And it's my mother.
Finally.
I was shivering, Yemi, because, oh my goodness, she's going to tell me that, we've been telling you guys about this, blah, 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 blah. And then she comes and Yemi, she says to me, my son, this too shall pass. You guys will win. I mean, I cried.
Ooh.
I didn't expect that from my mother was a domestic worker. She worked as a domestic worker all her life. And those days she was working for some white families, earning like less than $10 a month. And she was not political at all. She was the last person I would have expected to say what she said. But as they said, it's my mother, started saying, oh my goodness, she's going to be telling me off that I told you so and stuff like that. Because that was the environment of our parents. They really were not ready. They had not been prepared and they were not politically conscious. But added to that, and I need to add this because it's very important. When the white people sent Mandela and Sisulu and all the others to jail for life, they also said, we are sending a message to anybody who wants to be like these people that will take you to jail for the rest of your life. So I know my father was completely terrified. I know that because he was my father. And, when Mandela and them, when we heard on the radio that they'd been sent away, Black people were totally terrified. So when June 16 exploded, these are the people that had been a political lull because Mandela and them had been sent to jail for life. So they were not really ready. And I know some South Africans are going to start criticizing me because they were revolutionaries. No, we were few. I was in my whole community. I was one of the very few revolutionaries, and I know that. And I know that people would avoid, when I walk down the streets, they would avoid coming in contact with me because there was a possibility that they'd be arrested and police would ask them what it is that we were talking about. So there were fewer revolutionaries than the rest of the people. So the impact that it had on our parents and society was divided, but most people were just like not ready for this.
Yeah. Let us jump forward a bit, because I think we've pretty much covered June 16th, unless there's something of significance that maybe we have not touched on, because we've touched on the impact on family. But you know what? I'm sorry. Let us go back because there's a story about that iconic photograph of Hector Peterson, and he's being carried by the brother Guy and
Mbuyisa Makubu.
Mbuisa,
Mbuyisa
right?
Makubu,
And
yeah.
then that was his sister, and Antoine Sitole, walking next to him. What happened with these folks? Because that story.
So Antoinette is still around.
I'm sorry. Listen, let me tell you this. When I posted on my Facebook that photograph and invite to people to come, to view the show, guess what Facebook did? They removed it.
You told me they gave people an option of whether they want to see it or not.
Yeah. So I guess that impact still remains. But tell us about those two folks, though, please.
Antoinette is still around, Yemi. I haven't seen her in years, but she's still around. She was working for a museum library. She was also a tour guide. She used to take people around. They created a museum and named it after Hector Peterson, who was her brother. So I know she was working with her, but I lost contact with her, but she's still around. She's, of course, almost 70 now. She's not young. So I don't know what happened to her. The sad story is Mbuyisa, who left immediately after June 16, went to Nigeria. People were in contact with him for about 2 years, and after that, he disappeared, just simply disappeared. Nobody seems to know what happened to him. There's a brother who resurfaced in Canada about 10 years ago with a different name, and folks were claiming that it is Mbuyisa. He was no longer okay.
Oh.
He was mentally disturbed. So there were suspicions that it was him. I am told, and I'm not sure, but I'm told that some DNA tests were done on him and it was proven that it wasn't him. But why that is not a very strong story is because most of his folks had died. I mean, these kids who were young in 76 were now in their 50s when some of these things were happening. Some of their parents had died. Some of their families were no longer there. Mbuyisa particularly, almost everyone was gone except for his aunt. I met with her. I tried to assist them in trying to find Mbuyisa. So I don't know who they would have done DNA tests on, because also,
Right.
there is a guy who's languishing in jail in Canada, and people think that it is Mbuyisa. We have no way, because Mbuyisa was an 18-year-old boy then. This man is about 70 now. So it's just,
okay.
Yeah.
This relationship between South Africa and the United States is one that has so many parallels. Tell us a bit about how you view the relationship with Jim Crow and apartheid.
So when we left South Africa for exile, Adeyemi, we were sent all over the world. I came to the United States. I hated America. I called it the belly of the beast because Angela Davis said so in her autobiography. Steve Biko said so. So I was like, I don't want to go to the belly of the beast. When we came back home 15 years later, we discovered that those of us who went to the United States, how do I put this? Where I don't want to say better off, but related better the life conditions in the United States because of the similarity between our experiences, number one. Number two, we found homes at Adeyemi's house in Brooklyn, at Segun's house in Brooklyn, at Vosa's house in Harlem. We found kith and kin in folks in Alabama and North Carolina. You were invited to come and hear and taste my grandmother's sweet potato pie. You met Jamaican folks who ate goat meat and oxtail. Our experience is now, you're talking Jim Crow, I'm talking everyday life. I'm talking about the fabric of culture and life, things that we could relate to. We then also found the same fabric of life as the texture between white people and black people relations. It was the same. It was like we were back in South Africa all over again. I was in Washington, D.C. in 1979 with friends of mine. We were coming back from a concert of the OJs. It was 1978. And we stayed at a place called 4H Center. I think it was in Maryland, Tacoma Park. And the bus went up until somewhere in D.C. It couldn't go to Tacoma Park. We had to get off the bus and walk at 12 midnight. We were stopped by policemen 3 times who wanted to see our IDs. And we had just arrived in the United States. It was like, we're back in South Africa, folks. So I think our experiences in the United States have made us much stronger because it was like being back in South Africa. And the solidarity and the camaraderie and the families and the taking in also balanced us. There's some comrades of ours who went to Germany, Australia, and those countries that are full of white people who came back. I don't think we are okay psychologically. We are the same psychologically. I'm not saying they are crazy, but their experiences were totally different.
Right. And of course, it now moves up to today.
I had a choice. I had a choice whether I could marry a sister or marry a white person. And with the folks that I hung up with, the Adeyemis of this world, my chances of marrying a white person were very minimal. There are folks who had no choice.
Yeah.
There were no black people, so they had to marry whoever they were. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong or right or anything, but I'm just saying it was much more like being at home.
Yeah. Your vision, 1976, of freedom in South Africa, what did that look like? Or even if you thought about it, and what does South Africa look like to you today?
So the vision was very easy. All of us, hear me, thought we were going to go to the United States or to Britain, to wherever, and study for 4 years and come back and free South Africa. All of us. We never envisioned us staying for 15 years. We did not. Number 2, we used to criticize the old people that were there. Say, this guy has been here for 10 years. Oh my goodness, I'd never be here for 10 years. And the experience was totally different. So our vision was, we were let down and we had to face reality, and we stayed for longer. South Africa today is not what we fought for.
Douma, I can't let you go without asking, how were you let down and by whom?
So, we let ourselves down. Our starry-eyed impression of liberation and fighting for our liberation was not what was happening out there. Out there were camps where people were training to be soldiers, and they kept being told that they're not ready to go and attack South Africa. The white South African government was 10 times stronger, being supported by other countries like like the countries that are killing people today. I'm not going to mention their names. So South Africa was not a walk in the park. Those of us who ended up in America, there's no way we were preparing ourselves for revolution. So better go study so that you can go back home and contribute to the intellectual capacity of society. Could I have produced the television shows that I did produce in South Africa if I had not gone through what I went through at Lincoln Center, at New Heritage Theater in Harlem? It's a big debate. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think I got valuable experience in contributing to the cultural revolution of my country. My experiences with Reverend Herbert Daughtry and the Black United Front, was it United Front, your organization?
Yes, Black United
Front, African Liberation Support Committee, and all of those kinds of things made me a different person, matured me. So all those experiences that we got, we were able to use them as tools when we got back to South Africa. Now your crucial and painful question is, South Africa what we wanted it to be? No, it's not. Part of the reason when we came back home, we threatened people. We did not physically threaten them, but they were threatened. So they had to act against us. So they had to stop us. I had to start from scratch because I couldn't go around and saying, this is who I am. I have this degree and that degree, because folks just shut down and they wouldn't let you in. And they would tell you you're overqualified. So I had to start and build from scratch. I was smart enough to quickly see that if I want to go against these folks, I'm going to end up unemployed for the next 20 years. I started creating my own organization company from scratch. I had to start from scratch. I lost my wife. I lost a whole lot of things because I understood that I need to start from the bottom. And my success, or my perceived success, was because I was willing to start from scratch. I know a lot of people who killed themselves because they couldn't. So South Africa could not move forward because they couldn't integrate the skills that came back because folks were intimidated. South Africa didn't move forward because the skill set that resides with African Americans, we couldn't go and invite it. At the same time, white people were entrenching themselves. The economy is still in the hands of white people. The richest people in the country are white people. Only 3%, if not 5%, of stock exchange is in the hands of black people, and that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Douma, tell me about your time, because I've got a couple of key things I really want to talk with you about, but I know that you're extremely busy, and particularly today. So if I can keep rolling, whenever you have to stop, just say I got to
No,
go.
that's unfair. That's unfair. Let's keep rolling for a few more minutes, Yemi,
right.
but you can't
Listen.
expect me to say no.
Okay, the hot issue, immigration. We're here in the United States, and there's a big movement around the immigration policy of the current government. And so, you know, we're saying this is racist, and what is it that they're doing, because they're creating the conditions in the countries where these people come from, and then when they get here, they get bashed. However, we then look in South Africa, and we see what is taking place to other Africans who are now residing in South Africa. And let me tell you a quick story. Last time I was there with you, and my wife and them, they were going down to the market, and the maitre d' or somebody said to us, well, look, be careful and make sure that the products that you get are from South Africa, because so many other people are coming in and bringing their products and saying they're from South Africa. So at that point, I caught the fact that there was some issues there. Little did I realize how critical this issue is. Talk a bit about this whole immigration and the impact on Africans from other parts of Africa who are in South Africa.
The immigration issue in South Africa is very easy if you're a political scientist, Yemi. South Africans have been so welcoming of everybody from time immemorial. When I grew up, long before I knew what the struggle was, I grew up with Malawian brothers who impregnated our sisters and our aunts. We grew up with kids who were born out of Malawi, Zimbabwean, and relationships with our sisters. There was always that camaraderie between South Africans, number one. Number two, the mines. We have mines, as you know, and South Africans didn't.
All right, hope we can get Douma back in a few. Oh, all right. We'll see if we can get him back. If you're just joining us, this is Voices of Festival. I'm Adeyemi Bandélé, and we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Douma Ndlovu from South Africa, an activist who had been here in the States for many years. All right, we got you back, Douma. Please continue. We were talking about the immigration issue. Can you hear me, Douma?
Yeah, very well.
Good.
I'm back. Yeah. So I was just giving you the background of before. Okay, now I'm here. I think I'm connected twice. I need to.
Do you have your phone and the laptop?
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Yeah, then I'm fine now. It means I disconnected the other. I was mentioning the immigration before white people and their liberation and democracy and all of that, so that you understand that this thing about black people from all over the world in South Africa is not an issue, has never been an issue. Comes 1994, we come back home from everywhere else in the world. We've lived with everybody. We then construct what we call the most democratic constitution in the world. We then decide, Yemi, unlike the countries that took us in as refugees, we decide that we're not going to create refugee camps, that folks are going to come in and live with us in our communities, just like we did with you guys, that I came into Harlem, there was no refugee camp. That's basically what happened in South Africa. Now, two things happened after 1994 that brought us to where we are right now. Number one, the economy of South Africa started going south, or has been going south, and unemployment went up like crazy. That's the first thing that happened, and we need to understand.
Why in 1994? Was there some significance to that period, to that year?
1994, that's when we went to the polls for the first time. That's when we transferred from a white government to a black government. That's when Mandela became president. That's when things changed. I'll give you an example. White people only had electricity for white people only. So they only had to worry about 2 million white people to electrify. The black government had 40 million or 45 million people to give electricity to. They had 45 million people to give water to. White people didn't care whether black people had water or not. You had to go and find water wherever. Now we had to give everybody housing. I'm just saying, we expected South Africa to work like a miracle, and yet we took on responsibility of a country that had not been serviced before, just as an example. So from 1994, when we opened up our borders to Africans from all over the world, it was not as refugees, but they could just come in and go as they please. Others didn't even need a visa. The second thing that happened at Adeyemi was that our brothers, and you know them, because even in the United States, they come and do the same thing, then took advantage of that and came in and brought in drugs into our communities. Before 1994, South Africa didn't have a drug problem. Suddenly, you've got now your kids on crack cocaine who's stealing everything and stuff like that. You're dealing with things that you've never dealt with before. This side, there's unemployment. This side, there's an infusion of drugs and illegal activities. Then you had these brothers from across the borders who then started getting engaged in bank heists, in violent crimes. So when you look at stats in South Africa, crime stats in South Africa, we've got about 20% of our prisons are people from outside. 20% of prison population, it might be 30%, are people from outside. I don't want to call them foreigners, but not only are they from outside, they are also illegal. It's folks who came into South Africa illegally, or came with a passport and never left when they were supposed to do this thing. So we have a massive problem of folks who come into South Africa, because South Africa is the biggest economy in Africa, because in their countries, things are not happening, and they're not going to get citizenship, so they come here, they live here as illegal immigrants. I want to say I have no issue with that, but this is what brought us to where we are right now. Now, suddenly, young South Africans, the sister who's leading the anti-immigration march is in her early 30s. She's young. They can't find jobs. Every restaurant in South Africa, the waiters are from across the border. I'm not saying some of them, every restaurant. Why, Yemi? Because if they hire a South African, they have to give them minimum wage. But if they hire an illegal person, just like in the United States, they don't have to give them minimum wages. So these guys are all over the place, and there's unemployment in South Africa. And what you see happening right now is the tip of the iceberg, and people are now rising up against our government and the fact that there's unemployment and the fact that they can't get jobs and other people are getting jobs, getting preferences, and it's just beginning to, I understand where it's coming from.
Now, Douma, so let me ask you to elaborate on that point, because here, when that argument is used that they're taking jobs away, we discover that the jobs that these folks take are not the jobs that white folks are doing here. The farmers, these young white boys who are wearing MAGA hats are not out there in the fields picking cotton, picking oranges, grapefruits, etc., etc. So oftentimes the immigrants are taking the jobs that these other folks never wanted. So what you're describing, however, becomes a little different because they're taking jobs that would have gone to South Africans themselves.
So at first it started with those jobs that nobody would do. That's how it started at first.
Oh.
But now it's now across the board. Remember, that's why in my explanation I started with the unemployment. Yemi, you've got graduates who can't find jobs now, who are willing to be petrol attendants because they can't find jobs. Now, petrol attendants are people from outside who are illegal, who are being paid a fraction of what they're supposed to be paid. So it is now, I was listening to the news right now, they're saying unemployment is 46%. Now, in the United States, you keep hearing that unemployment is 5%, 4%, and you get angry, you change precedents when it's 7%. In South Africa, in the news tonight, they were saying it's 46%. And one opposition leader was saying, no, that's not true. It's more, it's close to 60%. So you've got massive unemployment. So where are the folks going to vent their frustration? They're going to go towards the illegal immigrants first and foremost. And there's a lot of people that are living in South Africa illegally, Adeyemi. It's not fair. As much as I'm a Pan-Africanist and I love my brothers and stuff like that, but people are coming here from across the border and staying and not going anywhere. You know, now South Africans are angry at them. And yes, it's true. They're going to react to black illegal immigrants before they react to white illegal immigrants because they never see the white people. They live with the black people because they come and live in our communities, which was fine, which is what we did. We accepted them in our communities. But now it's easy to turn against them because they live next door to you. And you know, this guy is not from here. Then you start chasing him away. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying that we're getting into a tipping point where people are rising up against unemployment and poverty and everything else.
So the issue of the immigrants, and let's jump to the issue of land and land redistribution. From outside, explain to us what is happening.
As black people, we never got this land thing correct from day one. Now it's catching up.
What does correct look like to you?
And that's a hard one, Yemi, because in Zimbabwe, they tried to take land and give it to black people. And the white community, the international white community responded and reacted. Two things happened in South Africa. We went easy on mining companies and conglomerates. We went easy on them. Mines were situated in land that was previously owned by black people. We were not brave enough to say, this land belonged to black people. What are we going to do? Can we come up with a solution? We introduced something that was called land claim, where communities could come and claim that this is our land, give it back to us. White people started bribing people and all kinds of things, and that has not gone very well at all. About 7-8 years ago, Cyril Ramaphosa was forced by the ANC to adopt what is called appropriation without compensation or something like that. And that's what Elon Musk and Trump are using against us today. And we have not even implemented that. But that was just 7 years ago, where we were saying, or they were saying that if there's land that white people are using that didn't belong to them originally, we're going to expropriate it. Now, whites are fighting the without compensation kind of a thing. And our government is saying, no, we are compensating white people. So there's just confusion. Black people's land is gone forever, Adeyemi. Forever is gone.
Forever?
The only way it can come back is through a revolution.
What is the population percentage of whites?
It's still less than, what is it? Still about, I don't even think it's 10%. I'm not sure, but it's less than 10%, I think.
And they control what percentage of the land?
85%.
Mm-hmm. But let me ask you this, though, Douma.
And 95% of the economy.
Are the young generations, are they ready to go back to the land?
No.
While there is a struggle around control of this land, but if we get it, are these young people going to be out there in the mines?
Young people in South Africa today, Yemi, are apolitical, very. They're either apolitical or they're on drugs. There are no youth movement. There are no young people's movements that are saying anything that makes sense right now. Young people are not vocal at all. And everyone wants to come to the cities. Everybody leaves place where they could cultivate and plant. Agriculture is the future in South Africa. But you can't tell that to young people. They look at it as backward.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Food production is the way to go.
So unlike, let's say, Caribbean islands where so much of the food stuff is imported, are you looking at importation of foods into South Africa?
No, well, Brazil was sending us some chicken and China was sending us some things. South Africans can do for selves because white people in the farming industry had done enough to be self. We feed ourselves to a large extent.
Okay.
And we do send some food overseas, but it's not the way it should be. We're not at optimum.
Let me jump back to the story that you were talking about yourself and your return. What made you decide that it was the right time to return? And what experiences are other expats like yourself having?
So for me, it's different, Yemi, because the whole time I was in the United States, I wanted to go back home. I did not see myself as a person who would live and die outside of South Africa. I've always looked at myself as a person who could come back to South Africa and contribute in some form or fashion. And I'm one of the first people to get up and leave when Nelson Mandela was released from prison. I didn't even have to think about it. It was like an opportunity, like I'd been waiting for an opportunity like this, and I upped and left. But I think I've always been self-sustaining because even in the United States, I've never had to go and look for a job at CBS or NBC or whatever, despite the fact that I studied communications, broadcast, and television. But I always wanted to create my own thing. So I had those skills and those tools. So I could come back to South Africa and do that. The other folks did not have those experiences. So folks came with degrees and they didn't get a job. Others went back. Others were broken down, were broken. So there are some few good stories, but very few.
So I know that Nyerere talks about not yet Uhuru, and he talks about the fact of those who stayed in the trenches and struggled and have a strong theoretical basis and love for their country. And then there are those who had left the country, acquired skills that are necessary for nation building, but they hadn't been in the trenches. And so there's been this ongoing conflict between who at this point is more important now, those at this stage in our movement, those who come with the skills that can aid in the nation building, or those who stayed in the trenches but don't necessarily have the skills required for nation building.
We have a different set of circumstances in South Africa, Yemi. It's Animal Farm in South Africa. It's Animal Farm. It's the pig gets to the top of the thingy and then closes everybody out. So it's no longer those who are in the trenches against those who are in the trenches. It's whoever gets to the seat of power first has to make sure that others don't come in.
It almost sounds like crabs in a basket.
Exactly. And it's sad.
So what is your vision then, or hope, number one? And number two, to get into your world, how do you see the arts impacting the future of South Africa?
My vision is one, and it goes across the board, including the arts. Young people should stand up. We need to find a way for young people to get up. Unless young people get up, there's no hope for South Africa. I can tell you that.
And by getting up, you mean receiving the necessary training as well as
in all respects. They need to get the education. They need to kick ass. They need to take over. But they need to have a vision. They need to, just like in 76, we had a vision. We wanted to change society. We need a group of young people who want to change society. We can't go on like this. We really cannot.
It seems so similar to our situation here in this country in terms of a vision, or a vision, but also a sense of purpose. When we were growing up, there was a sense of purpose in that young people saw movement taking place, and they could choose to engage or not engage. Oftentimes, circumstances like being stopped by the police or not getting a job or being treated unfairly moved them into a position where they said, no, I got to do something about this. The South African situation, the young people, like today, for example, did they, given the time element, did they recognize and understand and appreciate what happened 50 years ago?
They don't even know that it happened 50 years ago.
Ooh.
It's bad. It's bad.
So there's no activity that occurs on June 16th?
Well, no, there are activities. I mean, the government will always do something. Some people, the group of 76, the people that are organizing events today are people my age. Yeah. And some young people, but there is no movement, hear me. There is no movement. You and I belong to movement. We know we used to walk the streets, pass out flyers and pamphlets. You don't see any of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what about the role of the arts? Because
the apathy is across the board.
Say that again?
The apathy is across the board. Even the arts, there's nothing happening, in my view.
Oh, because I was going to go back to the point you raised early on in terms of the soil being tilled by the music, like James Brown, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, etc.
Not today. Not today. South African music is making it internationally these days. I'm not criticizing anybody, but there's a girl called Tyla. If you didn't know, you wouldn't even know she's South African.
What's her name?
Tyla, Tyla.
Tyla.
I think she works. Yeah, she's the biggest South African thing all over the world now. I think she works with Drake or Dr. Yeah, she works with Drake, I think. Or she used to work with Drake. Now she's getting bigger. She's doing concerts on her own. There's a brother named Black Coffee. He's a conscious brother, but he does the music. It's not hip hop. He's a DJ. So he does, he's very big, he's huge. He did Madison Square Garden sometime last year. But you haven't heard, the reason why you would not even have heard about these people, because it's not conscious music. It's not music like Miriam Makeba's music that would make you think, or it's just commercial music. That's all it is. And if you don't know, you would not even know that they are South Africans. And there's a number of them. There's a number of South Africans who are now making it internationally in this new kind of wave of music. And none of them are unique. When Fela was huge, there's no way you would not know that Fela is Nigerian.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Douma, I don't know. It's interesting. So, what's good about South Africa today?
Ah, we still have wonderful people. We still have. I don't know, Yemi. I think the revolution is going to come and catch us by surprise, just like 1976 happened. Maybe some things are happening. We're getting a lot of young, educated kids, even though they're frustrated because they can't get jobs. We're just hoping that one day some group of them is going to come and do something. Look, the richest man in the world was born in South Africa. He's the world's first trillionaire. I
Uh,
think there will be. I think there will be black people like that also coming out of the woodwork somewhere that can give us hope. God cannot forget us like that. He can't.
mhm.
Yeah,
um,
he has to remember us.
we've always been moved by people who set an example, not just by their rhetoric, but by their lifestyle and what they've done. Um, talk about the impact of Traore in South Africa.
Again, as I said to you, young people are not reading. I don't even think they know Traore in South Africa. I don't know. I mean, the
Wow.
young people, those that matter. We know Traore, and we think that something is great that is happening. But I shouldn't be the one. He should be known by the people that he can influence. And we need a Traore in South Africa. But the young people in South Africa might not even be aware of who he is and what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we talk about Traore. They may not know about him. They certainly know about Oprah. What has been the impact of her school?
She's taken a few kids to the United States. Uh, there's a woman called Tuso Mbed, she's working in the United States. The one thing that she's done, it used to be Charlize Theron, a white woman who was making it in the United States. Now there's 2 or 3 black kids who are making it big. The impact of her school here, I have not felt, not because it's not there, but because it's a different fraternity. They're taking young people and shaping them and taking them to the United States, because I think the ones that do well, she takes them to the United States and give them opportunity and stuff like that. She is doing something that is commendable. Is it societal? No, it's not, because it impacts on a few lucky families.
Mm-hmm.
It is not broad-based because, again, do they know about it? Do South Africans know about Oprah School? We knew about her when she started because there was a lot of noise about it. You hardly hear about it now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one school. Maybe one day one of the kids from the school are going to come back and lead and discover a treatment for AIDS or something. I don't know. But right now, I know Truso, who's an actress who was in that Viola movie about slaves, Woman King or something like that. She's doing extremely well. I know her. I know she's from Opera School. I know a woman called Nomzamo Mbata, who's just produced a movie here in South Africa. No, Nomzamo is not from Opera School, no. So it would mean that I know 1 or 2. Societally, what impact does it have? I haven't seen it, Yemi, beyond the fact that some kids are getting great opportunities, individual kids.
Right. Um, when I was there, I think my first time, I could feel the tension in Johannesburg. At that time, it was the murder capital of the world. And I understood that so many of the young people were those who had, had hopes of opportunities, which somehow did not materialize. What what are the things that the young people are getting into? And I'll give you a minute when you come back. We're talking with Dr. Douma Boya. Uh, I was going to say actor, but he's not there. Producer, director, activist. Um, had about 15 years with us. here in the United States, and very active in the anti-apartheid movement, which was where he and I collaborated, and we have been on this journey for some time. Last occasion, we went back to South Africa along with Reverend Herbert Daughtry for the 20th anniversary of the release of Nelson Mandela. All right. So, Douma, I was asking about young people, the violence, etc., that's taken place there. Is that a result of failed policies of the South African government, or greed, or what? Are you with me? Were you able to hear my question, Douma? Yeah, did you hear my question? I don't know if we're having trouble with now. Douma, you want to say something? See if I got you. Are you saying anything? Technical difficulties here. Douma? There we go. Okay, you're back.
Yeah, my internet is getting unstable.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get a few.
Hold on. Okay. Now I think I'm fine.
Okay, good. Talking about the young people, the violence, etc., and asking you whether that's as a result of failed policies of the South African government. I mean, with what exists there, the resources, what is it that is preventing the forward motion?
Leadership, wrong leadership, failed policies of the government, and when you look at global affairs and you look at countries that were liberated, they need to come in with a vision and united. We are not united in South Africa. There are two white political organizations that are contesting the elections. Two white organizations. There's about 700 black political organizations that are going to contest the elections.
700? Lord. Hey. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Where do you even start? Everybody that wants to start a political organization. You can Google, you can check. Go to Google and check.
700.
I don't understand it my own self.
Well, is that a case of participatory democracy where people, I mean, the flip side of that is come here with just two major parties.
It's foolishness. It's foolishness.
So now
it's the politics of the stomach. People think that when they get to government, that's the only way they can be employed and make money.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
now,
it's crazy.
What about the brother? And I'm sorry I didn't have his name with me though, but the young lion, that's been making a lot of noise there, and folks seem to be a little bit.
Julius Malema.
Yes, Malema.
Yeah, so he's got his own problems. I mean, he comes from the ANC. He fell out of the ANC because he was kicked out because of misbehavior. He then appealed to young people quite a bit because of his language. But in my view, and this is my view, he then also appealed to the angry young people. And I wanted to make a distinction between angry and radical. These were angry instead of being radical. Mm-hmm. A few of them in the leadership, very educated, but I wouldn't join that organization just because they are angry and they make a lot of noise and their rhetoric doesn't take me anywhere. You need young, articulate kids who can come up with a vision, clear vision, and not be angry, but just to be saying, this is enough. We need to take over. Not in a disrespectful way. I don't know if you can understand me. You need to know him to know exactly what I'm talking about. It gets up and swears at people and stuff like that. He rubs people the wrong way. So his positive messages get lost in his behavior and the behavior of his people. And there's a lot of belief that his organization is structured on the cult of personality. He's been found guilty by a court right now for firing a firearm. He's been sentenced to 5 years and he's out on bail. Because he's appealed. If he loses that appeal and goes to jail, I think it's over with his organization because it is one person centered.
Oh. So, yeah. Douma, let's talk a bit about you and your journey since you have returned and the incredible contributions that you've made to the arts in South Africa. Tell us, how did you get started? What was the first thing that you engaged in?
Oh my goodness, that was 30 years ago. I started interacting with theaters and I started doing theaters, but the first thing I did, I created a television production company and I started looking for contracts to produce television. And once I got my first production, I never looked back. Again, I mentioned earlier in the podcast that the experience that I got in the United States, I think came in very handy because I did things differently. One of the things that led to me being accepted was the fact that the television productions that were predominant those days were all emulating American and British shows. I came in and I started an African drama that spoke to the old ladies and to our own societies, that spoke of our culture. So that's a drama that I did, and it ran on television for 27 years until sometime last year. For 27 years, it was a soapie. Soapies in South Africa are prime time, because it spoke to the people. But 27 years later, it was still, what can I say? It was still referred to as that soapy that is African, because nobody follows in that trend.
Oh, really?
People are still trying to do a Netflix type of a show and all of those kinds of things. That's a society that we have. Yeah.
Now, I thought the other unique feature of yours was the inclusion of various languages.
So I emphasize on African languages, and the other shows are still English dominant. 30 years after democracy.
And so,
I'm still. We don't see an explosion of approaches that are similar to mine. We don't see. Yeah.
And you think that's what, because people are still stuck in that Netflix approach versus...
Yeah, because we watch American television, we still look at what the West is doing and we idolize it. Our institutions, our schools are teaching young Black filmmakers to be like Steven Spielberg or Tarantino, not even Spike Lee, if you know what I'm saying. So, and I don't want to be too critical, Adeyemi, because I live in a glass house, I know that my shows enjoy quite a large following. Young people ask me all the time, and I try to teach them, and I try to say, replicate your society that you come from. Be a reflection of the pictures that you draw on the screen. But, hey,
yeah. Douma, let me just take a quick break here. Remind all of you, we are talking with Dr. Douma Ndlovu, currently in South Africa. He is a director, producer, activist, poet, filmmaker, journalist, so many things, and family man. And has always been a supporter of us, both going back to the East and to the International African Arts Festival, but also our work around the cultural boycott, which I was honored to just be engaged with you on that. But please, we need you to subscribe, like, share this podcast. We need your support. And so we wish that you would just tune in with us, but also just share this because it's on YouTube. Folks can see it at their leisure. But those of you that are watching us now, please be sure to share. And we also need your financial support. So if you will text to give, which is one of the ways we set up for folks to be able to make their contribution. And you can call us at 917-268-1592. That's text to give at 917-268-1592. And you can also then go to iaafestival.org, where you can also make a contribution. We encourage you to become a monthly giver so that you just have it on that automatic thing. And if you're doing $20 a month, you all, $20 a month or $25 a month, and if enough people are doing that, we can feel that impact and continue to do the programming and present the kind of festival that we are doing. By the way, Douma, I want you to know that this go around, we have Sipo, Kunene, who is doing the Woza Massacre program. And so he plays the music of Brahu Massacre. What's happening with the arts in South Africa? Yeah, we have, and maybe you should also share your role in Sarafina and how you participated in making that possible.
Well, again, Yemi, I wish, and I so wish that there was a burst of young people coming out from all over doing new things. I think it's an indictment on us that the most famous play to come out of South Africa is Sarafina, that was done 40 years ago by people like myself, Mbongeni Voza, who brought it to the United States, and Lincoln Center Theater. Where are the young people who are like when we were young? Because when I was involved in all of those things, I was in my 30s. I was young, late 20s, early 30s. Where are young people doing those kinds of things? What's happening to the arts right now? I'm not sure. I don't see any new plays that can shift the earth under your feet. I don't see any young people, except for the music that I was telling you about, that is making it internationally right now. There's a sensation called Amapiano. It's a brand of music, which seems to be
and dance.
Yeah, which seems to be catching folks from all over the place. I think Tyler, the young lady I was telling you about, I think she sings that brand of music. I see those artists making it, but I don't come from that part of the world. I come from the part of the world that says music has to influence society. Arts have to influence society. So I haven't seen any play, any song, any group that has come out and stood tall and made the impact that the Huma Sikelas and the Miriam Makebas of this world made. So I will be unfair if I comment, because I'd be a little bit harsh, because I still see the people who are my age group still running around performing. I'm saddened by the death of Abdullah Ibrahim, but he made his contribution. Where are the young folks who are going to take over from people like Abdullah, from Hugh, from Miriam? In theater, where are the young people who are going to emulate Mbongeni, Percy, Gibson Kente, myself, and those of our generations that make sure that we do work that changes society?
Well, Douma, one of the things I always question is, are there people doing some good things and we just don't know about them? Or is it that nobody's doing anything?
I wouldn't say nobody's doing anything. I just think people are doing things that are not lifting off the page. There are people doing things. Yeah. Why did our work stand out? Yemi, when some of us went on stage to do anything, the whole world stopped to listen and to watch. Where are those young people today who do that? So there are people trying to do things.
Well, you know, I come out of the institution-based approach. So with the East was a cultural institution, and it provided a space for a lot of young people like myself to become involved in what it takes to run an institution, the challenges, how to be open and receptive, etc. Um, are there institutions where young people are going to learn the art so that they can come into being a massacre, a makeba, a letta?
So the difference between then and now is that now there's funding. So people have to apply for funding to do things. But what that has done, it has said that if you don't get funding, then you don't do anything.
Oh.
Now, the young people that are going to those institutions to do things are funded. And then you then start seeing favoritism and nepotism coming into that, where some people believe that the people that are being funded are not the people that are talented enough. You don't have the people with the drive who go out there and do things on their own, because everything now has to be about funding. So I think that's where we get it wrong as well, because, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be any funding, but I'm saying once there is funding, then the wolves are going to start circling to see what can I get from the funds that I give to somebody. And they are likely not to give the funding to the person who's most deserving or who's talented enough to do that. They're likely to give the funds to somebody who's going to grease their hand or something like that. And arts suffers. We walk the streets without being paid to do some of the things that we did. By the time we got paid, or by the time our work sold, it was because we had given blood, sweat, and tears to making sure that it happens. I don't see that happening these days with young people.
Are there some that are going away, like yourself, who went away, acquired the skills, and are coming back and trying to even start at the ground floor level as you did?
So there are people who are going overseas to study. They come back and get lost in the mix. And maybe we're just not seeing them. I don't know. Adeyemi, what made some of the works that came out in the 70s and the 80s stand out is because when you went to see it, it just changed your mind and everybody wanted to see it. I do go to theater. I do see plays. They are fine. They are okay. Those plays were not okay. Those songs were not okay. They moved society.
You said they moved society, huh?
Yeah, everybody was doing things to change the world, to move society.
Yeah.
When Miriam Makeba sang Pata Pata, the whole United States noticed. When Huey Newton did Grazing in the Grass, the whole world noticed. When you guys brought him to the East, I think he had a song called The Boys Is Doing It. But things were shaking. I don't feel that vibration now. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring some despair. I'm an artist. I'm an arts fanatic. I get moved by things that I see and hear and stuff like that. I am the same person that I was. My appreciation has not changed. I just have not seen things that shake me up and do to me the things that happened to me when I was growing up.
But Douma, let me ask you this: as a Pan-Africanist, is there any semblance of a movement across the continent? Are you in a silo in South Africa, or are you connecting to other artists in Zimbabwe or Ethiopia or Kenya. None of that's going on.
No, not that I know of.
Wow.
There's a brother from Brooklyn who leaves the United States every year to go to different African countries to look for dance companies to bring to Dance Africa. His name is Abdel Salam. I'm sure
Oh,
you know
Abdel.
Abdel.
Yes.
I've worked with Abdel for a few years, and we struggle to find talent to take back to the United States.
Wow. Well, that's a whole different ball game than just not connecting with or collaborating with other Africans around the country. You're saying that you can't even find credible dance
But the
companies?
hunger is not there, Adeyemi. And maybe it's across the continent where people want to be funded before they can do things. We traveled all over. We were prepared to do our play, our thing. We would set up house in the middle of nowhere and do our poetry. We didn't want people to pay necessarily. We could stand at a subway station and do our. We were hungry. I don't feel that hunger right now. I don't see that
Oh,
hunger. Yeah, and that creativity drives people to do things. So there would be a movement from Kenya we would know about. We'd either go there or they'd come here. There'd be that connection. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm in the periphery. But let them come to institutions and perform. Let them move us. Let them drive us crazy.
uh-huh. Now, let me jump back though to something that I'm not sure whether people know your involvement in the creation of this, but The Lion King. Talk a bit about your engagement with that.
So I wasn't involved in the creation of The Lion King, but I'm the casting director, or I was until this year, last year. I was a casting director. So The Lion King has got about 15 companies all over the world, the Broadway performance. And part of The Lion King, there's South African music, and Lebu M, who wrote some of the music, insisted to Disney that there should be South Africans in every company. So I auditioned South Africans and sent them all over the world to participate in The Lion King. So I'm the casting director. I've been the casting director for the last 25 years.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
Bongi Douma, whom we've had on the podcast and has performed at festival, talked a bit about his experience with that, but also how it served as a kind of portal for other artists to come into this country and then be able to branch out and do some other things. But what do you think accounts for the success of that play?
It's an amazing production. It's one of the best theatrical productions that I've seen. It's well written, well crafted, and well cast. It's one of the best theatrical productions that I've seen. And we need to learn to do productions at that scale. But also, when you look at Lion King, as exceptional as it is, you also see the money. You wouldn't be able to produce something like that without the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it costs. I'm going to get my figures wrong. I don't know if it was 25 million or 250 million. It just cost a lot of money to set it up, the Broadway production. And when you see it, it is the combination of the money and the right skills and the right talent. The writers, whoever those writers are, were just phenomenal. Julie Taymor, the director, and also the set and costume designer, was just out of this world. You do something like that once in your life, and it's something else. If you haven't seen The Lion King on Broadway, you got to see it to see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I
And
have
it's
it.
it's an African story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is well done. It is well done. It deserves to be the longest running Broadway show. I mean, I've seen shows, I've seen theatrical shows, I've seen musicals, I've seen everything. It's one of the best.
Yeah. Is there anything else coming down the pike that is that impactful?
Not that I know of. No, not that I know of.
Mm.
Again, if I was Disney or those types of people, I would also try something along those lines with an African storyline. I think they tried something like Tarzan. If they had asked me, I would have told them that Tarzan is the wrong,
Oh
is the
no.
wrong, yeah, is the wrong production to do. So the next thing after Lion King that they tried that had Africa in it was Tarzan. I would not do Tarzan, not in this day and age. But I don't see and hear them talk about anything similar to that. No. Can we do it? We don't have the money and the resources to do something like that. And that's the reality.
Mm. Mm. I see. I hear you. Douma, want to thank you so much for spending some time, my brother. It was a blessing. Um, I hope that we can continue to do the work around the lifting up our culture, gaining and maintaining and perpetrating our culture the way that you have. And I thank you for doing that. And also the fact that you immersed yourself into this home community. They don't put in your biography that you used to throw some incredible parties in Harlem. And I did my best in Brooklyn. But I think that that process is important because people see an immigrant, quote unquote, who comes in and brings something to the mix. It's like a stew, and they've got the spice so that when we come uptown to your parties, we know we're going to get a Pan-African flavor of music, and we're going to
Yeah.
come across a variety of people so that we not only come together on the streets, boycotting and demonstrating, but when it comes time to celebrate it and having fun, we're now experiencing how other cultures share, and it could also be just in terms of the foods and the dress. All of those things help to enrich us. And you certainly have enriched this community. We no longer are privy to and able to get your poetry, which was, some awesome stuff. Absolutely awesome work with such passion. And we hope, and I should have talked to you about doing something in closing, one of your pieces, just to keep your chops wet, as they say.
Not anymore. Not anymore, Yemi. Those
Uh,
were the days, man. Those were the days.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, are there any spoken word artists in South Africa that have
Yeah,
potential?
a few. There's a few. Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Again, I don't see that vibration in that large
Mm,
thingy again.
yeah.
Maybe one day.
Duma in the
By the
doc.
way, if you happen to run into any of the recordings of the things that we did, particularly the poetry, I'd appreciate it. There used to be a brother, and I think you know him very well. I don't know if he's still alive, Brother Michael, who used to record. And there was a light-skinned brother who was an assistant pastor at Reverend Daughtry's church who used to
Yeah,
go with
Minister
the
Brown. Minister Brown.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, he passed away. I don't know. He has a treasure trove of materials from demonstrations, etc. I will reach out and see who has access to his stuff because there's some things that he did with us in Grenada that we would certainly like to have and to be able to share with people. But
If
he,
somebody owns those archives, I really would like to see if they can lay their hands on some of the things that I did way back then.
I will reach out
Because they
to.
also recorded. They also recorded when I brought Nina Simone to the church, Reverend Daughtry's church. I know
Uh-huh.
you were there. Yeah.
Yeah, I will check. I'll find out because they may have access to that material that he
Yeah.
produced. But yeah, he passed away. But it was good to have him on the scene so that we could document and tell our own story. Uh,
Lovely. Yeah. No, no. He was always with the camera. I remember.
yeah, yeah. One of the criticisms that we have is of the East itself is that we have not produced our own work you participated with us when we tried to do something for the 50th anniversary of the festival, which was almost 5 years ago now. But we've got to do a better job of telling our own story. And so hopefully as we move forward, this next generation who have acquired the skills and the values will do the documentary stuff and put our story out there. Dr. Douma Boya, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you. Please give the greetings to all our comrades there in South Africa and those that are working with you. And we look forward to catching up with you again, either on this end or when we visit South Africa again. And
thank you, my brother. And just tell me what they look for on YouTube.
Voices of Festival.
Voices of Festival.
Voices of Festival. They'll go and they can see all of the back ones that we've done with Bungie and other folks. So
thank you.
This is you were around when we had Black News. So this is our new Black News now. This is our new Black News. Yes. Because we've always had a communications arm. But we kind of fell into a period there where all we did was festival, once a year. And then so we lost contact with people. So we're beginning to kick this up again and going worldwide with it. So thank you much, Douma. Please hang around backstage for a few moments so we can chat with you, okay? Again, y'all, Dr. Douma Boya, all the way from South Africa, on the 50th anniversary of the Soweto Uprising. So again, I want to remind you, please, share, like, get the word out there to folks. Let them know that Voices of Festival is where they can get this kind of information. It's truly important. And we need your support. We need your support. So please, you can hit us up. Well, first of all, of course, share, like this podcast, but also text to give. Help us continue to move forward the work of the International African Arts Festival. And you can do that by texting to give. Just call 917-268-1592, and you'll be able to make a contribution. And we are encouraging you to make a monthly contribution. So what you do is once you get to this page, you will be able to make that contribution. And I'm suggesting like $25 a month. I know that's not going to hit you. $25 a month means a lot. And if we can get 25 or 2,500 people doing that, then we can see that we have the capacity to support our own institutions. So we want to thank you. Until our next time, this is Adeyemi Bandélé, Voices of Festival. We look forward to seeing you again. Until then, be loving, be blessed. Peace.